up, everybody? What up, what up, what up, what up, what up, what up? I don't know what I'm doing, okay? Let me get my coffee. How's everyone doing today? It's Thursday. Let me think here, because I'm kind of all over the map. Today is the 15th. Tomorrow is the 16th. That's today for you. God, is it confusing to you guys? I don't think it is. Let me put this away for a sec. First thing I want to say, I appreciate all of you. Want to say thank you so much for anyone who has commented, watched, liked, ranked the special, anyone who shared it, anyone who shares this podcast. I appreciate all of you guys. It means the world to me. God, it's so funny. I said this story. Where the heck was it? Anyway, I'm still. You know what I did? I bought coffee at the airport in Portland. I like to buy bags of coffee at the grocery store, right? Because we're trying to save money. We're trying to be like, every time you go to the coffee shop, you spend $5 on coffee. I love my coffee shop. Okay, I love it. Alana's, Mar Vista. Go there, check them out. I love them. But $5 every time. And usually if I go in there, I'm like, should I get some tiny donuts? Yeah, Jay, you should. Should I get a ham and cheese croissant? Yeah, Jay, you should. Sometimes I get all three. And I usually get like a latte instead of just getting black coffee, which is better for me, even though I should probably get off the coffee. It's more about the ritual, you guys. Anyway, you buy, so $5, right? So if I get a coffee every day for a week, just coffee, that's $25. At the grocery store, I can get a bag of coffee, grind it, turn it into a pour-over, which gives me 2.5 cups, maybe 3 cups, and that lasts me like 3 weeks. And that's a $12 bag. Do you guys see the math? 75 minus 12? Do the math. $63 I save. $63. And now let's average that out over 3 weeks, right? So that's 3 quarters. That's what, like $46 a month you're saving. That's like $500 a year. I don't know. If someone said, do you want $500? I'd be like, fuck yeah, I want $500. And I'd probably do that math wrong. It's probably around $1,200. You know what I mean? So anyway, I was in Portland for New Year's. Fucking love that town. And there was like Stumptown in the, Stumptown's like the Portland coffee, or like the first one for them. And everyone in LA, there's tons of like coffee shops that have Stumptown. I'm sure that wherever you live, there are too. And I'm leaving, and they're like, I'm checking out, and they have this like Stumptown. I like a florally coffee. I didn't know anything about coffee until me and Nick Youssef, who's currently on tour with Rory Scovel, and I can't remember the other dude's name right now because I'm just off it, but they're touring, following around the country, following Tool. So go check out Rory Scovel and Nick Youssef. They are traveling, and they're touring, and I love them both. They're both great guys, and from what I hear, their third guy, who I can't remember right now, is also hilarious. So go check them out on tour. You can just go check out their Instagrams or whatever for where they're going to be. Anyway, Nick Youssef and I were in Portland, and we went to get coffee, and he's a huge coffee head. And he was like, what kind of coffee do you like? I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, do you like floral? Do you like bitter? And I was like, oh, I didn't even know there were different kinds. And I realized I like a florally coffee, a little hint of like a cherry or something like that. Oh, what? Am I fucking dropping cherry on you? Yeah. Anyway. So there was this one up there in Stumptown, limited edition, fucking Egyptian, and it was like floral, cherry, citrus, $15. So I got it. I go to a coffee shop the other day. I have like a rotation of 3 I will go to. Alana's is my number 1. Love Coffee on Ocean Park in Santa Monica is my 2, because it's near my kids' school. And then there's the Coffee Commissary over on Motor in West LA. That's like my number 3. And then I go to Minotti sometimes. Jesus, think about how much I'm spending on coffee a year. And so I went into Love, and I told them I was getting a cup. I'm like, yeah, I just bought this coffee, but I don't have a grinder. They're like, oh, bring it in. We'll grind it. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, we'll grind it. And I was like, yeah, well, I didn't buy it from here. They're like, that's okay. So I'm like, all right. So today I go in, right? Here I go with my coffee. I go, hey, man, I came in the other day. You guys said you'd grind my coffee if I, just brought it in. I think I was not from here, but you guys said it was no big deal. And the guy was like, and I clearly talked to someone else, and I clearly didn't remember who they were. And he was like, oh, all right. And like he seemed like a little annoyed. And then so it was my coffee was $3.75 for a black coffee. I gave him a $5. He gave me $1.25. I go, well, hey, here's my grind fee, and I put it in the tip jar. And he just was like, whatevs. And then he was really nice when I left. I don't know why I told you guys that story. A lot of things to discuss today. A lot of things. Tomorrow, I'm heading home to Massachusetts, which is today for you guys, because my best friend from growing up, his dad passed away. And he was, I never, I've been gone from home for so long. I moved from my home 20 years ago. It was 20 years. Holy shit, in 2 days. Wow. January 17th, 2000 is when I moved. I left Boston. I left Massachusetts, and I went to San Diego for 2 weeks, lived with my buddy Alex, ate pot brownies for the first time. When was your first time eating pot brownies? First time I ate pot brownies, I did what everyone does. I ate the pot brownie. Everyone's fucked up around me. Everybody. And this was like they were the first. My buddy Alex, he met this girl. So Alex and I, we had a really interesting relationship together. Alex and I both flunked out of college. We both started a painting company. I started one, and the next year he's like, I'm going to do it too. So we both were driving vans. We both had painting vans. But all of our friends were in college, and we were both flunked out. So we were living in our town, total townies, and we just hung out together all the time. You know what I mean? Like, there were times where he would just, pick me up in his van. We would go get 40s and weed, drive to a basketball court, shoot hoops, and then sit in the van, listen to Led Zeppelin, drink 40s, smoke weed, right? And his was carpeted. I got, a real work van. I got a Ford F-150 extended cab. This thing was a beast. And when I got it, it had paint racks in it. It was a painting van. And I needed it for my painting company. Because the first year I ran the company, I used my mom's car. Is that right? Or was it the second? I can't remember which. I think that was whatever. So I bought this van, right? And it had all these shelves on it with all this extra paint, paint in it. And I wanted to clean this thing out. I'm like, oh, I can't fucking wait. Let me tell you something. That is like a dream for me. That is a dream. Taking a van and turning it in, organizing it. This is my fantasy. Give me a van. Let me clean it out and organize it and turn it into a mobile workstation. That is a fantasy for me. You got it? I'm cleaning it out. Had all these shelves. Now, across the street was Mr. Murphy. Mr. Murphy, I'm sure I've talked about him. He was like a grandfather figure to me. This episode's going to be about father figures and grandfather figures. And he was like a grandfather to me. He looked after us. I remember our back steps in our house rotted out. Mr. Murphy rebuilt them. Something would break in our house. Mr. Murphy would fix it. He built the whole second floor to his house. He worked for, in my town, General Foods was in my town. Was it General Foods? And they made Jell-O, right? So you'd be at soccer practice and you could smell Jell-O in the air. That's where he worked. He worked at General Foods. And he was all about, you think I'm old school? You think I'm nostalgic? That's who Mr. Murphy was. You got it? This guy, nothing got thrown out in his house. He was across the street from us. We were at the top of a hill, right? And this is how cool this fucking dude was. His tree over his driveway, he rigged a fluorescent light so he could work in there, and it looked like a workstation at night. But it was like organic, if you will. You know what I mean? It was hanging from a tree. Then he had his garage. Here was the driveway. So here was the garage. I'm the garage. Driveway. Little tiny fence. And on the top of the fence were these black, tops on the posts. You would unscrew one post, and there was a button in there, and that's what opened the fucking garage. It was the dopest. And then he had his garage carpeted with pictures of all old cars everywhere because he loved cars. He took care of. He knew how to fix them. He took care of them. Every dollar this guy made, he wouldn't put money in the bank. He's like, son, that's what he would call me, son. I got $150,000 cash on the wall. You know why? I don't trust the fucking bank. You know what's under my pillow? A gun. That's who he was. And he used to I remember he lived with his wife and his son, and he would always he would take his wife out for dinner once a week, and he always had a pickup truck, had this old Chevy, a green Chevy that was in beautiful condition. And then one year he bought a Chrysler New Yorker, and it was red on red. Chrysler New Yorker, red on fucking red. Beautiful. I don't know if you remember this car, but on the hood, the little emblem thing was crystal. It was a crystal for Chrysler, dude. And the seats in the Chrysler New Yorker were the most comfortable seats I've ever sat in a car. They weren't stiff. You sunk. They were leather and soft. They were insane. And I remember he would park a car in the garage. I'll tell you about that car in a minute. In the car there was a garage. In the driveway there was a car. Then around the side, he was on the corner. This was a little tiny street. Literally one house on that street. Then the side yards of his house and the house behind him. And he had a little garage he built where he would keep a car. And then on our side of the street, there was here was our driveway. There was a little spot here in front of the other house. He would leave a car there. Anyway, he'd take his wife out to dinner, and they'd take out the New Yorker. And you'd always see him with the New Yorker, and he loved coming over to us. Son, what are you doing, son? Always, what are you doing, son? He loved us. He had one kid, and he just loved kids. He would tell me, son, when you're going to cross the street, you come up to where I am. You come up to the top of the hill. I remember one time a dog ran across, got hit by a car. I held it in my arms, son. It died in my arms, son. And that's what he was very intense. He would tell me all the time. He'd come across. This is a typical outfit for Mr. Murphy. Cut off jeans that used to be jeans he's not going to throw out. Socks, dress socks that probably have holes in them, so he can't wear them for out to dinners, but he wears them now. Old loafers, white V-neck just like this, USS Arkansas hat, and then on his hip he'd have a police collar, a little boop, boop. And that's Carl's going. So he could know what was happening in the town, and you'd be talking to him, he'd be like, son, and that thing would go off, and he'd be like, and then he'd come right back to you, son, let me tell you something. That was Mr. Murphy, always looking out for my mom, always looking out for us. And he would get so excited when you tell him stuff. He'd be like, we get annoyed at Mr. Murphy. And now I'm like, oh, God, I would love to have Mr. Murphy across the street. But he'd come over and he'd tell you something. He's like, what are you doing, son? I'm like, oh, yeah, we got our, playoffs today in the baseball. He's like, oh, that's great, Don. That's great. And he grab it. He was just he was awesome. He was so fucking awesome. And I remember when he passed away, we went to the funeral or the wake, and there was no one at the wake. Nobody. It was us, my neighbors next door, my boy Tommy Scappa, who I love to death, and it was just us telling stories about Mr. Murphy and his son, and, I don't know. Anyway, in the garage, he had a 1965 Ford Galaxy convertible, white on red, pearl white, pearl fucking white. Do you understand the coats of paint they used to do back in the day? 65 Ford was they do 6 or 7 coats. It was thick. Now you get a little ding, it's chipped. Then you would chip down to other layers of paint. Red leather interior. Fucking big bench seat in the front, big in the back. It was a long car. At least that's how I envisioned it. And I remember one time, I was playing a Little League game at Rec Park. Rec Park guy. We going down to Rec Park guy? At Rec Park, which was on the other side of town from me. I got done with the game. My mom's not there. No one's there to pick me up. I was playing in majors, but we never played at that park. We always played Palmworth. I don't know why we were at that park. And everyone's going. I remember everyone was going to their parents, everyone's going to their parents, hey, great job, blah, 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 And I'm just I remember being a little lost because my mom was there for a lot of stuff, or it was set up ahead of time that I was going to my coaches would drive me home. Barry Corbett and Dan Margarita. Dan Margarita was a comedian, ironically. I've never really put the two of that together. Like, I'm like, I wonder how much I was influenced by him. But they would always drive me home. And this one day, it was like, I'm sitting there, everyone's finding their parents, and I look over and leaning up against the fence in like cutoff jeans, white t-shirt, and that whatever hat, Mr. Murphy, with a fucking shit-eating grin on his face, just staring over at me. And I'm just like, oh, like, I don't remember it being set up that Mr. Murphy was picking me up. It was just like, he was looking at me like, hey, I'm here to pick you up. And I was kind of like, oh, what the fuck? What is Mr. Murphy doing here? And then, like, right behind him, I saw the Ford Galaxy, the convertible, top down. I mean, everybody looked at this goddamn car. It was beautiful. He would drive it in, like, the Memorial Day parade and shit. And I don't remember any conversation. I just remember getting in that car and driving home with Mr. Murphy and being like, again, I was an emotional kid because every single moment of my life always went back to the fact that my dad wasn't around. And here's this man who's now, like, driving me home, who I, like, always looked up to. He had this house. He had cool cars. He, like, when I did Boy Scouts and had the Pinewood Derby, he helped me do my car. Like, anyway, when I, you know where I'm about to bring you back to? The vans from painting. So when I got that van, right, my dream, cleaning out. I'm cleaning out the van with all this paint. And I first got it. 1979 Ford O'Connell line extended cab. I take the cans and I'm putting them all up at the tree at the end of our driveway. There's a big oak tree there. And I put a sign. I painted a sign on a piece of wood that said free paint. And Mr. Murphy came across the street and he's like, son, what are you doing, son? What are you doing? And I go, I'm putting out this paint. He goes, for what? And I go, free paint for anybody who wants the paint. I got to get rid of it. And he's like, son, no one's going to take this paint. No one's going to take this paint, son. What are you doing? What are you talking about? I'm like, I don't know, man. I got to clean this thing out. I got to go to work, dude. Now, I'm in college or college age. So at the time, I'm probably like 20. Oh, no, wait. Yeah. No, 19. I'm 19. I'm flunked out of college. Everyone is in college. I'm fucking slinging a paint job, I was 20, trying to get a business off the ground. And I got Mr. Murphy chirping in my ear about the paint. I don't give a fuck about the paint, Murph. I got to get out there, man. I got to book some gigs. I got to land some accounts. That's what I was doing. I'm like, dude, I got to get off the ground, man. I'm out of college, bro. I got to make a living. To be honest with you, all I cared about was buying a Jeep. I'm like, I just need to raise enough money, earn enough money to buy a Jeep. I come back that day. Every can except for 2 were gone. And across the street, Mr. Murphy found a gray, like, oil-based sealant and was painting the foundation of his house. And he's like, son, look at this, son. Look at this, son. And I was like, yeah, look at that, man. So I had my van. This is the demise of, this is what I loved about the van. I took an old chair. We had this, like, old, like, wingbacky chair, not high wingback, but just to, like, this level, super cozy. But, like, one of the arms was broken off. That was in the basement of my house, and I just put it in I had the 2 front seats in the van, and then I had that in the back. So, like, when we would drive to jobs, I would take my crew. There'd be 3 of us. One would be sitting in there. And then I had all my paint. It was the best, dude. And my ladders on the roof. It was the shit. I took that van with my friends that were working for me. We all were having a blast. Paint houses. Anyway, when I tried to get back into college, I drove in that van, and they told me, you're not getting back in. I was like, why not? They're like, because you got a C, a D, and an incomplete at this other college. We're not taking you back. And I remember, like, being so pissed driving home. I felt like such a failure. And I'm driving down the highway, and I see this, like, this guy in a Corvette next to me, and I was like, oh, yeah, dude? And I fucking gun it, thinking I'm going to beat a Corvette in a 79 Ford O'Connell line, and I blew the engine. And I remember, like, pulling off into, like, a gas station and just opening up the sliding door and sitting in that blue chair. And it was, like, one of those perfect, like, end of summer days. It's like a cool breeze was happening. I had a bag of Doritos, and I just sat there eating a bag of Doritos in this van. Wasn't getting back into college. Everyone was going to go back to college. I had this I just blew the van. I just lost the van. This is my job. And I just sat there being like, what can you do? You know what I mean? Fuck it. Anyway, Alex and I, where the fuck did I get to this? Oh. Alex and I would drive around in his van. And like I remember, so he decided, he's like, hey man, do you want to like do rock climbing with me? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I think I'm going to try rock climbing. There's this rock climbing gym in the town over from us. $50. You get a lesson. And then all day pass, and then you get a pass to come back another day for $50 to see if you like it. And I was like, all right, I'll go do that. And we did it, and he loved it. And I was like, nah, whatever. It's a lifestyle. I don't know if I'm a rock climbing lifestyle guy, but rock climbing is a lifestyle. Just like surfing's a lifestyle. He became like a surfer as well. Rock climber, surfing. Like, I'm the guy that wants to have a van that slides open with a chair in it where I can write while you're surfing. You know what I mean? You surf, I'll be up here. I got a coffee pot in my van. I'm writing. That's the guy I am. I'm taking pictures maybe. That's who I want to be. Like, I have a fantasy of getting an old bread truck and gutting it and then putting in, like, fold-down bunks and a desk and a coffee maker and a fridge. And, like, my son and his friends all surf, and we get up at 5 in the morning, and I pick everybody up, and everybody crashes on cots. And I drive them out to Malibu, and then they surf for an hour before school. They come back. I have a shower built off the back. They shower, get dressed, and then they all sit and do their homework on the way, and I drop them to school, and I drink coffee while they surf. That's a dream of mine. Will that ever happen? It's probably not going to happen. But it's a cool dream. And I remember, like, driving around with Alex, and he was like, he was going to move. So he started rock climbing and going to this gym, and then he met this girl. He's like, yo, I want you to meet this girl. And I was like, all right. So I meet her, and I'm like, yeah, she's awesome. He's like, yeah, I'm moving to California with her. And I was like, you are? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, dope. Fucking rad, man. And I knew I had started getting in my head that I was going to move to LA and try and make it in this business. You know, I didn't know I was going to be a comedian. I just knew that I was going to do that. So I'm sitting there. I meet her. She's awesome. They're rock climbing together all the time. And I remember, like, his dad was a total fucking Vietnam dude, smoked a ton of weed, worked at the post office, super chill guy, different than anyone in my world. You know what I mean? I loved his dad. His dad was awesome. I loved his mom, too. And I remember going to his house to smoke a joint with him and his dad, like 2 days before he left. And his dad's rolling a joint. He's like, how much money you got? And he's like, I don't know. And he's like, yeah, what do you care, man? You get your girl. That's what his dad said. He's like, what do you care, man? You got your girl. And his dad was like, that's all you need. Like, in his head, his dad was like, that's all you need. And I remember sitting there that day being like, holy shit, what is this? Like, what is this? How is that all you need? How do they know? What do they know? You know? And we smoked this joint with his dad. I remember, like, that before they were leaving, he and I would drive around all the time, listen to Led Zeppelin, like, going to California with an aching in my heart. We were just like, the idea of, like, going to California was such, like, this like, I don't know if it's an American dream, but it's so Americana of, like, I don't want to get too fucking literaturally here, but, like, there's a Thoreau. I got this book on Thoreau. There was this one book I took out of the library on Thoreau that, like, you couldn't get anywhere, so I just was like, I'll just pay the fine and keep the book. And it talked about, like, how man, when he goes for walks, he's naturally drawn west. I don't know if it's true, but that was the idea of, like, you know, that was, like, people came to the East Coast when they came to our country, and then they moved west, like, making that venture west. It became this thing. And anyway, Alex moved west with this girl. They rock climbed across the country. They were moving to San Diego. They got married in Las Vegas. He called me from Vegas. He's like, yo, man. It's like the middle of the night. I'm like asleep. I'm like, what's up, dude? And he's like, you're my best man, bro. And I was like, what? He goes, yeah, we just got married. They got married, right? And I was like, way to go, bro. Like, I'm like, what is this, you know? And they moved to San Diego together, and they're still together, and they have 2 amazing girls, and they have this amazing life. Anyway, this is where it all comes from. January 17th, 2000, I moved to San Diego and stayed with them for 2 weeks. And my boy Bot Parisi Bart came out with me to LA. I remember he came with me for that 2 weeks, and he helped me like go up to LA, find a place, get settled in. And it's like I remember this, like Bart and I had this connection because his dad, I don't know what I'm allowed to share from his world, so I'm just going to say his dad wasn't there, and it was a little more dramatic than my dad. So I remember like before I left for California, there was this like there's this pond in my town, and they just put in like where you could take canoes out in boats, right? You could take canoes out and stuff, and we were like, hey, should we go take a canoe out and just like canoe around a little? He's like, yeah. So we go out there, and we're in the middle of this lake, and I was like, hey man, I'm thinking about reaching out to my dad. I remember like saying this to him, and I hadn't seen my dad now, so I was 23. I hadn't seen my dad in 11 years or talked to him or anything. And he was like, oh yeah? And his dad was dead, just so you know. And he was like, uh-huh. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And he goes, there's not a day that goes by that I don't wish I had my dad. And if I had any opportunity to connect with my dad, I would take it. And I remember like having this like really like no, understand something. We didn't have like phones to distract us. It was me and him on a boat, a canoe in my town, talking about like I guess I will always come back to this like constant like not struggle but connection to like brotherhood and fatherhood, not just through my own life but through the people around me. That's where this is. We're gonna get to the rest of it, but he was definitely like this person in my life that I was able to like communicate with because we both lost our dads in different ways, and we always connected over that. So like the idea of like when I was moving to California and going out in that canoe, and then him going with me, and then like I remember like we rented a car in San Diego to go to LA to start looking for a place. He's like, you got to find a place, and I didn't know I had no idea how I was going to do this, and so he rented the car. I remember him paying for it. It was a nice car. I think it was like an Infiniti, and we like cruised up. I remember like driving with the sunroof open. We were fucking stoked. And we went up there. We found a place. We looked at a bunch of places with my friend Chris, who I went to high school with. And then I went back to San Diego, and I took the place, and Bart left. And anyway, tomorrow for you guys, this Friday, will be 20 years that I left. And on that same day will be the day that I'm at the funeral for my best friend from growing up, his dad. So, you know, I remember like when I was in 2001, I think my great aunt passed away, and I couldn't go home. I didn't have any money. I couldn't go home. Like I couldn't go home. I just didn't have the money. I would like have to like lose my job. You know, I just couldn't go home. And now I'm at a point in my life where like a funeral like this pops up, and I'm like, I'm going home. There's no question I'm going to go home. And like I know some people are like, you know, I've talked to my buddy. He's like, you don't have to come home. I'm like I know. You know, I don't want to like put it on his head of like worrying about what, you know. Anyway, I'm going home. But I wanted to talk about this guy, my buddy Dave's dad, Frank, because I don't know. I'm sure even if my dad was around, I would have had this like bond with Dave and his family because he was my best friend. You know, I had a lot of really close friends, you know. But every summer I would go away with Dave and his family to Hampton Beach, which if you've seen my This Is Not Happening, the Hampton Beach story, like every Hampton Beach experience I've ever had was with Dave. And then we would go away as a family. Like once a year, we went away to Lake Winnipesaukee, my whole family. And then as I got a little older, my oldest sister was not coming with us, so I got to bring Dave. So Dave would always come away with our family. And, you know, Dave was around for everything. I spent more nights sleeping at that kid's house. You know, Dave had a brother and two sisters. I had a brother and two sisters. And every Christmas, if you remember a couple episodes back, I talked about a friend having a family tradition where they would open the gifts and then leave them open, like laid out on the that was Dave's house. And his dad was a math teacher, and he was a chess coach, head of the chess team. And I knew chess at a young age. Like my son's getting into chess now. Like he likes chess, and I love chess because it's strategy. It's mathematical in a way, and it's like I think those are the two things. But I always liked chess, and I always liked that his dad taught chess, and I can't like. It was never like I was. His dad had to work, man. That dude had to work. This is what always baffles me about the economy and about like you know where I live and where people are living in different towns. Like when I grew up, everyone had a house. Dave's dad was a school teacher, and they had a house. You know what I mean? My buddy's dad worked at the GE plant. They had a house. Everyone had a house. Like everyone could afford a house. It just seems like nowadays, like it's just so hard to like do that. And I know I live in like a very expensive town, but I look at other towns and I'm like, could I afford a house there? I don't know. Um, but yeah, his dad battled heart failure or heart condition for a long time now. So anyway, he about 2 years he was battling this heart issue, and I don't know if I probably mentioned it. I bought a typewriter about a year ago now, and I was like, I'm gonna start writing letters to people. Well, when I had heard that Dave's dad was sick, this was like a year and a half ago. I was like, man, I want to make sure before it gets any worse that I write him a letter and just let him know how much he means to me. Because when growing up, when there was no man around, you look for these people in your life to help you define and understand what a man can be or you should be or could be. I don't know. I just know that I was consciously always taking notes. You know what I mean? Back in my head, I was taking notes. My buddy Dave's dad, my buddy Rye's dad, my buddy Alex's dad. Bart and I shared ideas of what dads would do or should do or could do. My soccer coach, Mr. Carino, my other soccer coach, Dean Serino, they were ideas of, and I remember my high school girlfriend used to babysit for my soccer coach. So I would be over his house with her babysitting, and I just love like watching the dynamic, like seeing a husband and a wife together in a situation. My high school girlfriend's parents, like watching them now, then later my wife's parents, and just being like, oh, like how does this work? Like how do two people, and Dave's dad was like a big part of it. That like he was so solid in that house. You know what I mean? So solid. Let me tell you this. So I would go away on vacation with them, and they would go to the ocean. Hampton Beach was on the ocean, okay? We would go away to a lake. I was not a big ocean guy. I didn't know much about it. So I would go on vacation with them, and they would be like, make sure you put suntan lotion, sunblock on the tops of your feet. And I remember being like, what the fuck? What are they, out of their goddamn mind? Now, don't forget, I always just kind of parented myself. I was like, yeah, no, this is how I roll. I'm like, nah, I'm good. I would just be like, I don't know what made me have an opinion on this shit. What made me in like 8th grade be like, what are these guys out of? No one puts suntan lotion on their feet, because I'm definitely not. No one is saying that. Parents would tell you that. You'd be like, oh, all right. No, me, I was like, nah, I'm good. I burnt the crisp out of the tops of my feet. Smoked them. So you would rent these like little beach cottages, and we're sitting in this beach cottage, and it had like a linoleum floor. There was no living room. It was like kitchen, sitting area where everyone would sit in these chairs, and that's where you would eat, and then a front porch where Dave and I and his brother slept, and then there were bedrooms in the back where his Nana and Papa would have a room, his mom and dad had a room, and then his sisters would share a room. And they were all tiny little rooms with like super thin walls. You were there to be at the beach, that's why you were there. And I burnt my feet so bad that they got out like a basin and they filled it with ice water, and they had me like soaking my feet in it. You know what I mean? But then it would get so goddamn cold that I had to put my feet up on the edge, and then I tipped it. I told this story before, and I tipped it all over. This is the kind of thing, like this guy was looking at me and seeing this guy. Like, who the fuck is Dave's buddy? Think about if you have kids, they're going to have friends at some point in 8th grade. They're going to come away with you, or they're going to spend the night at your house, and you're going to laugh at them. You're going to get baffled by them. You're going to be impressed by them. You're going to be annoyed by them. Whatever it is. That's who I was to this guy. And I remember like the first time having Mexican food was at their house. Dave's dad was Portuguese. I think no, maybe he was Italian. His mom was Portuguese. I think his mom was Portuguese, but his dad loved spicy food. He would get the salsa. He would get like the hottest salsa, and he'd be sweating. Like he always had like a, he had that little horseshoe haircut. You get what I'm saying? Oh, you got the horseshoe haircut. No one's going in and be like, "Can I get the horseshoe cut?" Nobody. They're like, "I'm balding," but you don't say that. I've never said it like, "Oh, you get the horseshoe." I wonder if guys are like, "Dad, I've always wanted that horseshoe cut." Nobody wants it. Unless you're a character actor and you won't work. Anyway, he would like sweat down his head. These are the moments I remember about him, so I just want to celebrate him a little with you guys. I remember that. I remember him getting an above ground pool. He had 4 kids, and I know as an adult now with kids, I'm like, God, I want a fucking pool. You want to give your kids a pool? Who doesn't want to give their kids a pool? I'm like, we got a fucking pool, man. Yeah, could he afford an in-ground pool? No. Could he afford an above ground pool? Not really. Dude, this thing was janky, okay? It was above ground. It was made of, like, redwood. I think it only lasted, like, 2 years. But I'll tell you what, man. Those were 2 amazing summers in that goddamn pool. And his dad and mom, they made it happen. But I remember just looking at him and being like, oh, man, this guy got them a pool, And the other thing I remember, I mean, I can see his walk. I can see everything. I remember where he'd sit at the table. I remember, like, how he'd always, like, he always had this, like Mr. Murphy, this happiness, like, when he would talk to me, like, when I would talk to him. And, I don't know if it's just because of my situation and these men would see it and see something in me, or if it was just this is the way I was lucky enough to be around these, like, positive people, or if that's, I mean, I know I'm always positive around kids. I'm always like, hey, what are you doing, buddy? They're my kids' friends and stuff like that. But, I remember, like, we would play soccer in my town soccer. You have town soccer. The year it started in my town, I was 5. I was the first year of kids that went all the way through the system, And they had these fields up at Broadway, way up on top of this hill in our town, and there was, like, 3 fields, and they had, like, a little like, hut where parents would sell coffee and donuts. So they would go and get, like, a bunch of donuts and get coffee and then sell it, mark up the price and sell it, and that would go back towards, now we have it at my kids' little league and soccer. There are, like, these little, like, the snack shack, and you can go over there. But this was, like, so raw. I just imagine a couple dads got together and built that thing, And I remember just one time I don't know who I was standing with. Alls I can see is Dave's dad in the little hut, giant smile on his face. It was freezing cold because you would have games at like 7:30, 8 in the morning. You had to get up there, and in the middle of fall in Massachusetts, like there were days it was frost on the ground. You had long sleeves underneath your shorts. You're playing in shorts. It was cold, and I remember just sitting there and seeing Dave's dad like serving, and I remember just being like, "Why is Dave's dad up there? Why is he get to be the one?" Or I wasn't jealous. I was like, is he in charge here? And now I look back, I'm like, oh, he was just volunteering. Every parent puts in their time, and he had 4 kids, and he was up there volunteering, and he's just a great dude. He's a great dude, and I'm really excited to go home, and I feel lucky that I get to go home. I'll be there for the wake. I'll be there for the funeral, and it just feels good to be able to go be there for not just my friend Dave, but his family, for who was always there for me. And I guess, like, when we can take the time to support people, whether they're in a time of need or not, is like, it's cool. And I think it's important. And I'm really stoked to be doing that. So that's my little trip down fatherhood and brotherhood lane. And now, let me get to the things I wrote down, guys. You think I don't prepare? I fucking prepare, dude. I prepare. Oh, some things coming up. Vermont, I'm coming back. I was supposed to be there in December. It didn't happen. So now, April 2nd, 3rd, 4th. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, Vermont Comedy Club in Burlington. Go get tickets now. If you live close, make a weekend of it, dude. You know how dope Vermont is? You know how dope Burlington is? Please come. Please come. I'll tell you what. I'm going to do this right now. That Thursday night, the 2nd, we're going to do a Thruline party. Thruline party after the show in the club just for Thruliners. Okay? So buy your tickets. Email me at Holiday Bakery Productions and show me your tickets. And for that Thursday night, we'll do an after party where we're just kicking it. And we'll do, the show probably end at 10, say goodbye to people, and then we'll go into that. There's a little bar there, and we'll just all sit around and chat. And we'll chat, and we can do whatever we want. I don't know how many of you are out there. I have no idea. I don't know. But that Thursday night, the 2nd, unless you guys want to make it the Friday. I don't know. What do you want to do? There's probably going to be 2 shows on that Friday, I would imagine. So you can't really. Thursday night's the night. Sound good? Everybody down for that? All right, cool. Go buy tickets. So that's going on. You know what I want to tell you guys? My son has got this, like, he's like, it's like, how old are you, dude? He's like Yoda. He's just got wisdom. So I took him to a rock climbing gym. This made me think of it, the rock climbing thing. And my son isn't like a daredevil. You know these kids that are like daredevils and they like fucking jump on a bike? He barely wants to do a bike. Soccer, the ball has got to hit him off the body for him to even touch it. He's not going at it. He does not like having to compete with anyone. Baseball, he loves hitting because there's no competition. The ball's coming at him, he gets to hit it, he loves it. In the field, he gets in ready position. Every time, he's in ready position. You think he's running to a ball? No. You know why? There's 4 other dudes running the ball. That's not his vibe. So I took him to a rock climbing gym. Like, this would be good, like get him to get up there because he gets a little afraid once he gets a certain height. He moves, boom, 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 gets this height, stops. And I'm always like, keep going, like, let's go. I don't be like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm just like, come on, bud, you want to keep going? You're doing great. And he just always like, nah, I'm all right. So we were there. We did an hour, right? And I would be like, come on. I go, you want to keep going, dude? You're doing great. He's like, no. And I'm like, all right, let's go over and do this one. Thinking like, hey, let's go try that one. Then we'll come back to this one. Maybe he'll go up a little further. And we go back, and I'm excited. I got the helmet on. I'm climbing too. And he stops. He's like, gets his hands on the holds, and he stops, and he looks at me and goes, Dad, you wish you were a kid, huh? And I was like, who is this kid? So I hugged him, and I bit his face. And I was like, you fucking know I do. And this is how different my kids are. My son says to me while we're rock climbing, Dad, you wish you were a kid, huh? Because I get so excited. That's my son. My daughter is at Star Wars, and she grabs my wife and goes, Mom. So Rey is like Lord Palpatine's granddaughter, and he's bad and she's good. And she goes, Mom, if I was Lord Palpatine's granddaughter, I would hug him and I would kiss him. And if he was still bad, then I would kill him. Okay. That's the difference. My son's like, you wish you were a kid, don't you? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, I'd fucking kill that guy. I'd kiss him first, but if he didn't want to, nah. Another thing I want to say to you guys, do me a favor right now. Go to your Pandora or Spotify and just put in Jay Larson and just like let it play. It just helps. Are you guys cool to do that? Just go to Pandora or Spotify. I'm finding out that like it's such a huge part, and I think Pandora and Spotify are going to be a big part of this year for like what I'm trying to do as far as a little tour in the fall, and I'm going to shoot a special. So go F yourselves. I'm shooting a special. So this woman, Debbie, wrote into me. Deborah. Do you hate Debbie? Oh, man. Debbie? What were your parents? Listen, if you're going to have kids someday, leave Deborah alone, okay? Just leave it alone. No offense, Deb, but is there any way is there anything we can say to that word, that name, to make it sound better? Deborah, Deb, Debbie, nothing. None of it. Not one good thing about it. There's not a thing there. Not a thing that sounds good. Anyway, she wrote me in. She sent me an email saying how are you, Deb? How you doing, Debs? Deb wrote me and said that her aunt recently passed away, who was 90. Her Aunt Ruth. Mine, Aunt Ruth, lived to 100. No big deal. And you said that she had a sister that lived together, and she died at 80. So anyway, her aunt passed, and they were cleaning out her house, and she found a address book from her other aunt that had a Mr. Garber name on it at 42 Lincoln Street in Stoneham, Mass. That's where I'm from. And she said in the email that, no one in the family remembered her ever going to Massachusetts. So anyway, I reached out to my mom and I was like, Mom, do you know where Lincoln Street is? She goes, yeah, of course I do. Lincoln Street. She starts giving me the history of our town. Like, it's right over, they're calling it now the Heights. And I was like, the Heights? She's like, yes, well, that's where the elite lived. And I was like, she's like, you know where all the big houses are? I'm like, no, I don't know any big houses in our town that aren't turned into like 4 families, Anyway, I looked this address up. It ain't a mansion. It's a little tiny house. But Deb, what I'm thinking is, what if your aunt had an affair with this Mr. Garber? This is like something I've wanted to do for a while. I want to take little things like this and dive into them. Like, what if we go find out that she, like, fucking loved this guy and he wanted to be with her, but he had someone else, Ever seen Bridges of Madison County? P.S. I watched Bridges of Madison County when I was in, like, I think during that dropout phase, like when I was dropped out of college, with my mom. And if you remember the movie, basically, what the hell's her name? The most, maybe, some people, the most amazing actress of all time. What is her name? Meryl Streep. I said to my buddy, I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, I can't stand Meryl Streep. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like the greatest actress of all time. Have you seen Deer Hunter? Have you seen The Devil Wears Prada? I mean, just an awesome movie. And so we were watching Bridges of Madison County, which she's in, and she plays this Italian woman who moved to the U.S., married a farmer like in the middle of Iowa, and, just settles into like this generic life with this guy. They have 2 kids, and she likes her life. And her husband and kids go off to enter their horse in a competition, and when they do, this Clint Eastwood comes to town. He's a photographer for like Nat Geo, and he drives a pickup truck, and he's photographing the bridges of Madison County. And what happens is they fucking get down. She like steps completely out of her life and gets down with Clint Eastwood, and like he like pursues her because he's he's a maverick. He's a badass. He travels the country shooting pictures, and he drinks beer, and anyway, he's just like this fucking slick dude. And they have this affair, and then, I won't give the rest of it away. But it's all told through the kids have grown up now, and the mom died. Meryl Streep's dead, and they're finding her journals, and they're finding these letters, and finding out that like she was in love with this guy that they never knew about. So Deb, what I'm thinking is we should look into this. 42 Lincoln Street. If we go to the town of Stoneham, we can find out the history, who lived there, who is Mr. Garber. I'll tell you what, I'm home on Friday. I'm going to go look. I don't know why. Will I? I don't know. People, see, this is the thing. Is like I could pursue this, and people can be like, I go into the town, I'll go into my town hall. I will. And then I'll go over, and I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to find the history of this house, who Mr. Garber was. So then I could probably find out who he is, and then I could find out who his kids are. So then I could find out the kids, and I could ask them, like, hey, do you have... Then I could get a little deeper on it. So, but what I'm saying is, if I go in there with this question, they're going to be like, what do you need this for? I'm like, well, I have this podcast, and someone wrote into me, and I'm trying to see if maybe it's like Bridges of Madison County. And you know what people do? They think I'm fucking nuts. And you know why I know that? Because I have a letter that this man wrote to my grandfather when my grandfather was retiring. This guy wrote a letter to my grandfather, and I have it framed in my house. It's this beautiful letter. And I just think it's cool. Why would I not have that framed? And so I thought, oh, you know what'd be really cool? It'd be really cool if I could find the grandkids from that man and ask them about their grandfather to find out more about my grandfather. So what did I do? I looked the guy up. I found out where he worked. I left him a voicemail at his office. I haven't heard back yet. Probably because he was like, who is this fucking crazy person? Because people are so afraid of shit like this. But Deb, I'm going to do it. Gretchen Herman. Gretchen, how are you? Gretchen wrote in, because I said to you guys, like, hey, any new hobbies? What should I be trying? Here's something else. We're getting chickens. Getting chickens over here at the Larson household. I told my wife, I'm like, let's get chickens. And I like said it in front of the kids, and she's like, Jay, you're not just going out and getting chickens. We need to do research. I go, what do you think I'm going to do? I'm just going to get 15 chickens tomorrow without having like a cage and food and knowing how to feed them? I'm like, I know. My kid's like, are we getting chickens tomorrow? I'm like, yeah, 15. And 4 are sleeping in your bed. and 4 asleep in a year. That's what I told them. They're like, really? I'm like, no, not really. So I had said this, like, tell me some hobbies. Tell me some things you're doing. Gretchen wrote in. She told me 5 years ago she got into powerlifting at 57 years old. Powerlifting. She said she has no idea why. And then she won a gold medal in Japan in powerlifting at 62 years old. Gretchen, fuck yeah, girl. Good for you. First of all, look at the age group listening to this podcast. Way to go. That is the dopest thing I've ever heard. And she's like, I think I might try violin next. See, I want to, like, learn guitar. That's something I'm always like, I want to learn guitar. But then I'm just like, I'm, like, afraid. I really am. Like, if there's something you think, like, oh, I think I'm afraid. Like, I look at people playing guitar. I'm like, God, I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to sit around a fire and just, like, play songs. Even if they're covers. I don't even care if I ever get to the point where I can write my own. Even covers. Just to be able to be like, hey, let's everyone sing a song. You can make music. You can speak a language. Music is a language. And I love that you have this confidence, Gretchen, to just go out and try those things. And I hope that I can. That's the thing is, like, young age kids can do it. And, like, I want to be an inspiration to my kids to be like, look at your dad, man. He's learning how to. Guitar, I definitely want to learn. Way to go, Gretchen. Proud of you, girl. And any of you guys, if you're doing something new, let me know. I'd like to know. So Chris Bender wrote in. This was a while ago. But he wrote in to tell me that he told me that camping's a big part of his life because I've been talking about I want to get into camping. And he said that they started making chicken soup for Christmas Eve. He's like, I think I'm going to do Christmas Eve, and then he was going to rip my donut idea. And you're not ripping it. We're all sharing here. That's what this community's about. That's why we're going to have that get-together in Vermont. And you know what? I'm going to start doing that every city I go to. You know, the Vermont one's going to be the first one, and it's just going to be us getting together for people who just start buying their tickets now. And I'll start putting a list together for that Thursday night. But we should, like, figure out something else to make it a little bigger than that. So anyway, when Chris wrote it in, I forget what you said in your email, man, but you said something along the ideas of, like, I don't know, I've never made chicken soup, or I made this chicken stock, so I figured I'd make the soup. And, oh, you know what it was? This is what you said. This is what Chris said. He said, I'm trying to start family traditions as well because I didn't have a ton of family traditions when I was a kid. And that's what it was with me. Like, I didn't have a lot of – we had some family traditions, but you don't look at them as traditions. You don't be like, all right, this is what we do. You know, we've started creating traditions. And I wrote here, like, the idea of what I thought parenting was going to be versus what it is. Like, when I talk about how my son isn't like this, like, go-getter, I was a fucking maniac. I would be outside from the second the sun came up till the streetlights came on, and I'd be pissed that I had to come in. I would play sports all day. I could take a baseball or a tennis ball and throw it off a wall for hours. I remember one time we got home from somewhere, I don't know where. I was the youngest. I was probably 5, and I was like, hey, who wants to go out back and play? And everyone's like, nah, I don't want to. And nobody wanted to come play with me. And someone was like, yeah, I'll come out in a little while. So I went out back, and I'm sitting there doing whatever. Nobody would come out and play. And I got so mad, I went up and I punched my hand through the window. I fucking did. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 scars. I remember, like, gushing blood. These are big scars. And my mom taking me to the emergency room. There was, like, this place called the Health Stop, which I imagine was like an urgent care. And I was, like, gushing blood. And everyone was like, what are you doing? So then my mom had to leave everyone at home. Think about that. Like, we think, like, leaving kids alone, at least I do. Like, I look at my kids. He's almost 6 and 4, right? So the time, if I was 5, that means my brother was 6. That means my sister was 7 or 8, and my other sister was like 9 or 10-ish. Maybe like 8 or 9. Could have been 9. And my mom was like, well, I got to take the youngest to he's fucking bleeding out of his arm. He might need stitches. I got to go. And then it's, all right, the 3 of you are staying home. 9-year-old, you're in charge. I don't even think about that falling on my sister's head. So I'm looking at, like, what my son is like, and then, like, 9-year-olds that I know or 10-year-olds that I know, you're going to have to look over that? Crazy, man. crazy. My mom, it's like thinking about like my buddy's dad passing. That someday we're all gonna lose our folks, and it's like the letter that I wrote to my buddy's dad. At some point I have to have that conversation with my mom. I mean, I'm sure I've thanked her over the years, and I know there's been a couple times over the years I've called her just to let her know I love her and thank her, but like, I don't know. I don't even know if like how grand of a gesture is grand enough to appreciate all that she did. You know what I mean? I just know, like, even last night, my daughter was just not. Well, it was not a fun night getting her chick to bed, and like, she was very upset. She went to bed at 8. This is like 9:15. She's coming in and out of that room, getting upset, wanting stuff, completely irrational because she's exhausted, completely irrational. And I was like, I'm gonna take your lovies away, and she's like, no. And I went to her room and I was like, her light. I have a little light in her bunk bed. She's got a little light on a dimmer and shit. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna take the light bulb. So I went back out there and I go, hey, I didn't take your lovies, but I did take your light bulb. This girl, oh my God, exploded. She goes, threw her arms down. My wife couldn't stop laughing because it was so, like, it crushed my daughter. And I'll be honest with you, we believe, and we try to practice that you got to give them a warning, like, hey, if you do this, this is going to happen. So they know, And I didn't. I was like, I'm going to take your lovies, and I didn't. And I just took this light bulb, and this chick fucking, woo! Just put it this way, that was like 9:15. This went on, I think she finally went to bed at 9:50. So like this morning, I'm like driving to school, and I was like, hey, last night, I'm like, that was not fun for me. Was that fun for you? And she's like, no. And I had apologized to her that night about the light and just letting her know, like, I love her. Because at this point, she's not thinking anything except that like, I'm like a traitor or something. And I told her, I'm like, I love you more than anything. I'm like, I don't want to fight with you. I don't want this the way to be. I go, the only reason I want you to get to bed is so that you have a healthy sleep, so you wake up happy, so you have a good day, so that you have a good night, that you have a good sleep, that you have a good day. Like, it should be a cycle. I'm like, we love you. And anyway, I got to get going. I love you guys, and I really appreciate you guys. And again, Spotify, Pandora, throw a channel on. I don't care if you're listening to it. If you're at work, go on, put it on mute. Please, helps. And Vermont or close by, get out there. Let's do that Thursday night. Let's all hang out. I'm going to talk to the club ahead of time and be like, hey, can you guys get me like a non-alcoholic bottle of gin? Yeah. All right, guys. I'll talk to you next week. By the way, a lot of cool guests coming up. I know you want some. I'm bringing them. Bye.